KP Video News. KP Video News, y'all.
That's right, it's KP's Video News. And I'm coming to you with the real, coming to you with the raw. That's right, the real deal news here. And just like to thank my niece for getting me this t-shirt here. You know, write like Maya Angelou, think like W.E.B. Du Bois, speak like Frederick Douglass, build like Madam C.J. Walker, challenge like Rosa Parks, and inspire like Barack Obama. It's a good positive little shirt, kind of liking it. Okay, got a story. This is a story out of Montana, and this is a peaceful protest in small Montana resort town turned ugly Wednesday night when a visibly angry man confronted demonstrators, yelling at them while standing only inches away from their faces. In a video shared on social media, a man is seen yelling profanities at a group of demonstrators supporting Black Lives Matter in Whitefish, about 60 miles from the Canadian border. The man, identified by police as Jay Snowden, is clearly agitated and becomes increasingly so as the group starts chanting peaceful to drown out his yelling. In a powerful image shared by Samantha Francine, who is one of the protesters, Snowden, a tall white man, is seen looking down on a much smaller Francine while she looks up into his eyes, holding a poster that reads, "Say their names." Francine, who is biracial, stated that in that heated moment, with Snowden standing inches away from her face, she felt no fear. The 27-year-old protester said the words of her white father, who died 16 years ago, ran through her head. No matter who the threat is, no matter what the threat is, you look them in the eye so that they know you're human. In that moment, if I felt those words that my mother spoke to me from such a young age, and I saw fear in his eyes, and I knew he wasn't going to hurt me, Francine said. He was just upset and uncomfortable, so I stood my ground, and I got captured in such a beautiful way. Snowden was ultimately removed from the scene by police. Later, after police consulted with the Whitefish City prosecutor, he was charged with disorderly conduct. Whitefish police said in a statement posted on social media, he is expected in court on June 17th. The city of Whitefish is dedicated to protecting the First Amendment rights of individuals to peacefully protest and ask all who are involved to respect each other's rights and protest peacefully, police said. People reached out to Snowden, but he did not respond for a request to comment. It's not clear if he has an attorney. Asked about how she feels about the way people view the incident, Francine said, "I have gone through so much, experienced so much the last 27 years, and in that moment, everything I've gone through made sense." She said that every person who's yelled at her like that, every person who's hurt her feelings, let her down, or embarrassed her, led her to that moment. I was surrounded by so many awesome people in that moment, and there was such an incredible energy, I just knew what to do, she said. Francine said she had no malice in her heart towards Snowden and, in fact, delivered a gift basket to his wife on Saturday to let her know that she knows his wife doesn't embody her husband. 97% of Whitefish's population of 8,000 identifies as white, according to the 2019 census. And the situation goes on. Democrats challenge a rule that could toss thousands of Arizona votes. Democrats today challenged an Arizona rule they said could result in thousands of mail-in ballots not being counted in what would be a critical U.S. election battleground state. The Democratic National Committee and two allied groups sued Arizona Secretary of State to allow voters 5 business days after federal elections to correct ballots that may otherwise have been rejected for not having a signature. Currently, such ballots are not counted. Arizona's flawed mail-in ballot signature rule has led to ballots being tossed aside and uncounted, and that's unacceptable. Democrats regard Arizona as a potential linchpin in the November 3rd elections, where several recent polls show their candidate, Joe Biden, is in a close race against Trump there. The southwestern state is also home to Senate, House of Representatives, and state legislature elections regarded as competitive. Democrats have been fighting a multi-front effort to expand voting access in key states and have promoted the use of mail-in ballots during the coronavirus pandemic. Republicans have criticized voting by mail as ripe for fraud, as voters do not have to appear in person at a polling place. A spokeswoman from the Arizona Secretary of State said she could not comment on the ongoing litigation, while the Republican National Committee did not immediately respond either. And here's a story here that's pretty, this going back to the George Floyd situation. And this is one I just found. It said former co-worker says Floyd and Chauvin bumped heads. As mourners in Houston honor the life of George Floyd in Minneapolis and honor the life in Minneapolis, the media is learning new details from a nightclub co-worker about alleged history between George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, the former officer who is charged in Floyd's death. According to a former co-worker, not only did they know each other, but they had a history of friction. Floyd and Chauvin both worked security at a nightclub at the same time. Co-worker David Penny said the two men had a history. They bumped heads, Penny said. How? It has a lot to do with Derek being extremely aggressive within the club with some of the patrons, which is an issue, Penny explained. The Floyd family says they believe what happened on May 25th was in part personal. Their lawyer has called for Chauvin to be charged with first-degree murder because we believe he knew who George Floyd was. Is there any doubt in your mind that Derek Chauvin knew George Floyd? Penny was asked. He said, no, he knew him, the co-worker said. How well did he know him? I would say pretty well, Penny replied. Maya Santa Maria, the owner of the now Protest Torch Club, described how Chauvin treated black patrons when she talked on an upcoming special called Justice for All. Santa Maria said she had been paying Chauvin when he was off duty to sit in his squad car outside El Nuevo Rodeo for 17 years. She said Floyd worked as a security guard inside the club frequently in the last year. In particular, they both worked on Tuesday nights when the club had a popular weekly dance competition. Do you think Derek had a problem with black people? She was asked. I think he was afraid and intimidated, Santa Maria said. By black folks? Yes, Santa Maria confirmed. As the investigation continues, other cities across the country are considering police reforms. On Tuesday, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said he would support sweeping reform measures in his state, including a ban on police chokeholds. It's a moment to do real reform. City officials in Minneapolis are discussing defunding or dismantling the police department. What happened there has sparked demands for a new law enforcement model, but even those who support the idea aren't sure what that really means. So that's some new information, folks, that Floyd and Chauvin definitely knew each other before this situation. They both worked together at a nightclub doing security work. So now they think it's a possibility this might have been first-degree murder since they already knew each other, since they already had problems with each other. Okay. Protesters have gathered in major cities across Australia demanding justice over minority deaths in police custody in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. About 10,000 people gathered in central Sydney Saturday after a court overturned a previous injunction that ruled any protest there illegal because of social distancing restrictions. Similar demonstrations went ahead in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Adelaide, with protesters waving banners and chanting Black Lives Matter. The rallies were organized by indigenous rights groups, among others, under the banner Stop Black Deaths in Custody. Jeremy, 27, who didn't reveal his surname, attended the march in Sydney. To know that I stand on the shoulders of black black people before me who have enabled me to live the life I lead. I had to ask myself if I was going to be the ancestor that people after me needed me to be. And protesters rallying outside Sydney's town hall called for justice for David Dungay, an Aboriginal man who died in Sydney, in the Sydney prison. And his case has drawn parallels from George Floyd's death at the hands of police in the United States. Like Floyd, Dungay's family said his last words were, "I can't breathe." Dungay, who was schizophrenic and diabetic, died in Long Bay Prison Hospital after he was overpowered and restrained by at least four prison officers, according to the press release sent by his family's lawyer. Dungay's family is calling for criminal charges to be brought against the correctional officers involved in his case. Australia's indigenous population, composed of mainland Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders, make up 2.4% of the country's 25 million people, yet accounts for more than a quarter of its total prisoner population. Wow, man, that sounds just like the United States. 2.4% of the country's population, yet 25% of the total population in prison. Man, that's sad. That's really sad. Analysis from a Change Record, an Aboriginal-led justice coalition, found that there have been 449 indigenous deaths in custody between 1980 and 2011, which represents 24% of all deaths in custody over that period. There are so many modern parallels what's going on in Australia and the United States. A Sudanese Australian activist and author, Yasmin Mageed, said it's the same institutional racism. It's the same black deaths in custody and police getting away with it with impunity. Protests in Australia come after a 17-year-old indigenous boy was injured by a policeman in Sydney on Monday. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, the boy's mother, father, and sister, who asked not to be named by the media, said the actions of the junior constable who arrested and later freed their son without charge were dangerous and uncalled for. They have called for charges to be brought against the officer. Video taken by an onlooker shows the junior constable kick the boy's legs out from underneath him and pin him to the ground with the help of two other officers. Watching this video as a family and seeing the appalling way this adult arrested and a compliant child is chilling. The use of excessive force is unnecessary and irresponsible, the boy's sister said. The officer has been placed on restricted duties while the case is reviewed by the Police Standards Command. Earlier on Wednesday, the police commissioner said he was absolutely sorry for the incident. So we got similar stuff going on. The same stuff that happens in Australia is going on here. That goes on here is happening in Australia as well. So California's has come up with a proposal to vote to reverse the affirmative action thing that they did on. It's like 24-year-old ban of affirmative action programs, capping an emotional hours-long debate. And it's like a tension between the state's Asian and black communities. And so the Asians are upset because they make up, let's see, what was that percentages? They make up basically the majority of the people that are in the universities in the state of California. So they don't want to share. Let's see, at the University of California system, Asians account for 30% of the undergraduate and graduate population, followed by whites at 24%. So it's like, okay, but Asians only account for 15% of the state's population, but they make up 30% of the graduate and the student population in the California universities. I'm going to do a whole story on this. So come back, folks. Come back. I'm going to do a whole story on that one.
KPVIDEONEWS.